In a matter of days, 2018 will be history. The end of the year can be bittersweet, closing a chapter of sorts, but it's also a turning page to something new. Each year we greet the new year with a look at someone to watch. This year we have two subjects on our watch list. We went back to school in selecting a person to watch in 2019. It might help to add teen edition of someone to watch. She's 17 years old, a high school senior, and the National Teen Jeopardy champion. This year, we'll see her graduating from high school and heading to college. We think we'll see a lot more of Claire Sattler down the road.
You know, I came into my power suit trying to be all intimidating, which apparently worked, as I found out afterwards that they were all scared of me for a little bit, until they realized I was just a massive dork, just like the rest of them.
Our next subject is not a person, but something many people are closely watching. With an assist from a financial expert, we're looking at what to expect from the economy in 2019. That's our lineup, entertaining and we hope enlightening. We'll have those stories along with the latest in our Positively Healthy Medical series. I'm Amy Osher and this is Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. Thanks for joining us. The TV quiz show Jeopardy launched its very first teen tournament in 1987. That was more than a dozen years before Claire Sattler was even born. The teenager from Bonita Springs made it on the program and then played the game like a boss. Her victory aired last month nationwide. Touting the tourney as an assembly of 15 of America's brightest young minds, it was, in reality, a brainiac showdown. The Jeopardy Teen Tournament awarded a $100,000 grand prize. That's a lot of money for someone in high school. Bishop Barrow Sr. Claire Sattler plans to put the money to good use. We talk with her about the show, her strategy for winning, and her plans for the next round of life. BT Dubs, we didn't require her to pose her answers in the form of a question. It's worth noting that we're in your high school courtyard. A lot of the people around here obviously know, and they must be getting used to you being a celebrity.
I don't feel like anything's changed, but then you know, so I'll be out in public and someone will bring it up and I'll be like, oh, hello, person I don't know.
It is in a lot of ways, and it's ironic that we're doing you as someone to watch, a person to watch, because can you kind of tell us where you are right now? You're a senior in high school, headed to college next year?
I'm a senior in high school. I am applying to colleges right now. I've already applied to some, but I plan to major in biomedical engineering. Not sure exactly what I want to do. I think I'd like to work in prosthetics, but obviously all that could change. I could end up in a different field of engineering. I could end up in one of the sciences. It all really depends. I'd also like to minor in Spanish or musical theater, because those are two other
And those two always go together, I'm sure, like bioengineering and theater.
Yeah, totally different topics, but things that I'm very passionate about.
And, you know, can you kind of walk us through your Jeopardy experience?
I'd actually been taking the test since there was a Kids Week test, and I think I started taking it around the age of 11, I think is when I started taking the test. And I actually made it to the in-person auditions when I was 12, in 8th grade, and I auditioned, and I did not make it on the show. At that point, because there's usually around 10,000 people that take the online test, and then about 300 get selected for the in-person audition, and from there they pick the 15 for the show. So I had made it down to the 300 back in 8th grade, and then I didn't make it onto the 15, which I'm super grateful for now, because
it turned out well.
It turned out so much better, and the best thing about making it on now was the awesome friends that I've made.
I was wondering if you got to know the other teen contestants while you were there, because I know it was a process of different days and different shows or different tapings. So did you spend time together?
Yeah, we actually only filmed for 2 days. So the first day they filmed all 5 of the quarterfinals. So we all got to know each other on the first day. I mean, it was still kind of awkward and tense because we were all trying to put out some sort of an air of
have
confidence.
A little game to you.
Yeah, you know, I came into my power suit trying to be all intimidating, which apparently worked, as I found out afterwards that they were all scared of me for a little bit, until they realized I was just a massive dork, just like the rest of them. But Yeah, so the second day they filmed the semifinals and the finals, but even the people who were eliminated in the quarterfinals still came back to watch.
Nice.
And afterwards, you know, there was about like an hour-long bus ride from the hotel to the studio. So we were on the bus together, hanging out, talking. We couldn't have our phones on when we were in the studio.
Makes sense.
So that was a huge reason why we got to know each other so well, because we couldn't hide from each other in our phones.
But it's good. You have a lot in common by virtue of being there, and you obviously are all very intelligent, accomplished students and people your age. So I'm sure it was fun to spend time.
Yeah, and it was really cool because everyone came from very diverse backgrounds. Most of the other students came from completely different backgrounds, ethnicities, and it was really, really cool to get to meet all these people who are very similar to me, but also very different. And I think that's what made our little group mesh so well. And we actually still have a group chat going to this day.
Isn't that neat? Now, did you have anybody that you found intimidating there that you thought like was the person to beat, or were you trying to not let that get into your head?
I definitely had a few. My parents were terrified of Maya. She really intimidated me because she was so small, but she was such a powerhouse.
Had a lot of power.
Yeah, and Tim scared me a lot too, because Tim was the highest scoring wild card. Not wild card, sorry. He was the highest scoring contestant.
Sure.
And then when they paired me up against him in the semifinals,
yeah, you knocked him out.
I was just like, I'm done. There's nothing I can do here. I'm knocked out. But it ended up working out better than I thought it would. I really went into that, and I heard my name get called. They went like, okay, the first game of the semifinals is Tim, Autumn, and I'm thinking, oh, I pity the poor fool has to play these two. And then they go, and Claire, and I was just like,
oh my gosh.
Great.
Once you got in there, you really hit your zone though, because you really, obviously you won both those games to get on, but I watched you were like in spurts where nobody could even buzz in.
Yeah, it's very much a strategy on the buzzer. People think it's a lot more about intelligence than it is, because just by nature of making it onto the show, you have to be really smart. Like, all the other contestants were so smart, and I would say that some of them are even better at Quiz Bowl than I am. It's just the nature of understanding how the Jeopardy buzzers work and getting used to them fast. Because the way the buzzers work there's actually a system where if you buzz in before Alex is done speaking, it'll lock you out.
Locks you out. I've seen people clicking and clicking.
Yeah.
You can tell that
it locks you out for a quarter of a second. So they tell you to keep clicking it to try to get back in. But if you've been locked out, it's really hard to get back in time. So it's all about timing, being the first one in, but also not being so early that you get locked out.
Yeah. So now you obviously, what was it like winning when you heard that and you saw your bet, or you saw the bets coming in before you and you knew you had it right? So you got an inkling that you won?
I just sat there and I realized that I had won before I even got to Final Jeopardy on the last clue, because I was doing the math and I was looking at the day's score. So because Maya had a low score the first day, but then she had come back the second day and really gotten on the buzzer, and Emma had a hard time on the buzzer the second day, but she had a high score the first day. I was doubling their second day scores and they were still below what my 2-day total was without even making any bets. And I was like, that can't be right. There's no way I have a runaway in the finals.
So you're thinking all that during the actual game?
Oh no, they actually do. When there's a commercial break, we do get a little bit of a break.
Okay.
So every time there's a commercial break, they'll bring us little bottles of water and make sure everyone's okay and not gonna have a panic attack and faint on the spot and die. But so they do give you a couple minutes to make your bets, and they make sure you've got everything lined up and stuff. You write what is before you even get to see the question. So, or who is, depending on what the clue is. But yeah, I was doing the math, and I was just kind of looking in the studio audience, because obviously you can't talk to anybody, like your parents or whoever is there to support you. But I had brought one of my math teachers, my math teacher along, Miss Schreiner. She teaches here at Bishop Verot, and she's also the Quiz Bowl coach. And I was looking at her, trying to catch her eye in the audience to see if I could get any glimpse of what she was thinking. And she just I was kind of giving her this look like, did I just pull this off? And she just kind of gave me this little look like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, you did. You don't need to bet anything.
Oh my gosh.
And so I put down the big old zero, I took a deep breath, and I was shaking, and I just kind of waited.
Because it was a fixed prize amount, correct?
Yeah.
What was the prize?
It's $100,000. So.
Is it in form of scholarship money?
It is not. It is in the form of money, which kind of stinks because taxes, but it's still crazy. I cannot complain about winning all that money.
Yeah.
So
that's got to be very exciting, though. So I heard MIT is your top choice.
Yeah.
For school, for
yeah,
college?
I'd love to go to MIT, but I also have a lot of other schools on the list. I'd love to go to Georgia Tech. I've been looking at Columbia recently. You know, I've got Stanford, Yale, Carnegie Mellon, all those fun, expensive, need scholarship and financial aid schools.
To good use, though. So what else is on your agenda, though? I know you do a lot of other things at school, but do you ever see yourself entering the Jeopardy tournament maybe as an adult? Are you allowed to?
I am not allowed to. Yeah, they take your social security number when you sign up, so you can't even sign up under a fake name and go for it.
Well, maybe one day they'll have a tournament of champions that you'll be allowed to be in.
Yeah, so they used to invite the teen tournament champions to the Tournament of Champions, but I understand why they don't do it now, because it's a different level of competition sometimes. But although I would beg to differ that the teen tournament contestants know a lot more than the type of knowledge they test you on in the teen tournament. Like, we would probably be just as competitive in the adult tournament. They're all very, very smart.
Or if they get enough, they could have a teen champion tournament or something.
Yeah, that would be fun. We were joking that we should have a teen tournament 2018 reunion. They did do one of those at one point back in like 2000 or something. I forget what year it was.
You'll have to let us know. Now, for my last question, I'm going to have you phrase it in the form of a question, though. So, Claire is doing what in 2019?
What is trying her best in school? I mean, I'm just trying to finish out my senior year strong. I'm really passionate about way too many things, and I want to be involved in all of those things, like musical theater. We're doing another musical in the spring. I love art. I'm in the chorus. I love my STEM team. I love my STEM program that I run, STEM for Students. And I just want to take advantage of all the resources that I have here in my senior year of high school, use it all to the fullest while I'm still here, and then hopefully get into a good school for college and be able to keep going, keep succeeding, and do my best.
Life here is amazing, and so is the joint care. At the Total Joint Center at Physicians Regional Healthcare System, we've changed the experience of joint replacement for good. With our comprehensive joint care program, most hip and knee replacement patients return home in just 2 days, because we know you want to get on with your active life. Pain-free living starts at Physicians Regional Medical Center, Collier Boulevard, and Physicians Regional Medical Center, Pine Ridge.
Is your auto insurance keeping pace with your life? Ask for a AAA Triple Check Insurance Review to see if your current policy is still a good fit. An agent will assess changes in your life, like new vehicles or drivers. Make sure you've got the right coverage and all the discounts you deserve. They'll also see how a AAA membership can round out your protection on the road. Plus, provide roadside assistance, discounts, free services, and vacation extras. Ask for your AAA Triple Check today.
It's been 10 years since the Great Recession, and people are very dialed in on what's happening in the financial world. Some lost a lot in the economic meltdown and spent years rebuilding. This past year brought a tax reform deal, along with low unemployment. Still, the stock market is a question mark. And then there's talk of a trade war. So what should we be watching for in 2019? To look forward to the economy, it pays to take a look backwards. And you said we really need to look at going into 2018, the end of 2017?
Yes. I think what 2017 will do is set the expectations for 2018. So 2017, we had a banner year in the stock market. The S&P 500 was up about 21.8%. Congress had just passed a tax reform bill reducing corporate income taxes. Lower income taxes would mean higher net income, greater investment into the economy. That was going to be buoyant for the stock market. So from the corporate side, CEOs were very, very optimistic and bullish about the prospects for 2018. On the consumer side, you had low unemployment, high degree of consumer confidence. So we entered into 2018 from the consumer side and from the corporate side with having a tremendous degree of optimism and confidence into 2018.
So 2018 should have just been a phenomenal year for everyone.
A lot of us hope that. And what happened is in January, things were kind of plodding along as we expected. And then we had this wake-up call in February. And in February, there were 2 trading days where the market closed down more than 3.8%. On each of those days. And that is something that we hadn't seen in years. And you know, it's a bit ironic, something that you and I talked about earlier was this year is the 10th year anniversary to the great financial crisis and the Lehman debacle. So was this a precursor to something that could have happened later in the year? Marched forward, and that was down a little bit. Then we went into Q2 and Q3. Q2 and Q3 were wonderful. Stock market was up 10%. Everything seems to be back on track. We hit October. What happens? We have the worst stock market return in 7 years. A little bit of bounce in November. But if we reflect back, now we have 11 months etched into the books. 8 out of the 11 months were positive. 3 of those months were negative. Now, in aggregate, we're slightly positive in the U.S. Stock market, which is far away from what we had expected. But relative to other assets, if you look at European stock markets, emerging markets, one thing we talked about earlier was Bitcoin. Bitcoin's lost 80% of its value.
Yeah, everybody was high on Bitcoin for a while.
That's right. Everyone was very, very bullish on Bitcoin, and now you hardly ever hear about it. It's sort of a dead asset now. So on a relative basis, even though the stock market right now is about at 2 to 3% year-over-year return, doesn't seem all that great. On a relative basis compared to other assets, it's actually pretty good.
What happened though? Is it talk of all the trade wars and things like that? Is that what kind of turned a corner? Well,
the market in general doesn't like uncertainty, and there were some big things that were really uncertain. So in the middle of the year, we had trade tariffs, the concern about escalation into a trade war. We also then had an uncertain future path of interest rates. And the concern there was that the Federal Reserve would aggressively raise rates in a manner that would derail the economy. And then the third component is something that we would call the potential for yield curve inversion. So what that really means is that the farther out that you are investing in, let's say in a bond, the higher the return should be. So, so if I lock my money up for 2 years, I should get a higher return if I lock it up for 10 years. And that's the common spread that the market looks at, is that the difference in interest rate between 2 and 10 years. Well, what's happened is that spread has fallen from about 2.5% now to 0.15%. And the market—
Does that mean it doesn't pay to get into bonds then?
Well, it doesn't pay to go long now, like beyond like a couple of years. And the concern is that if that spread were to go negative, so interest rates at 2 years were higher than 10 years, that typically forebodes a recession. And so, recessions coupled with what would be a weak banking environment, because banks like to have higher interest rates the farther out they go because they're lending money for mortgages. If it goes the other way, that's really not good for them economically. So a weak banking system, recession, is not going to be good for most S&P 500 stocks and certainly growth stocks.
Is that why we saw the recent stock market plunge?
Well, I talked to some friends on Wall Street late last night, and quite honestly, they're scratching their heads a bit, because the typical indicators that you would see with respect to retail investors were aggressively selling past 2 weeks, not so much yesterday. Institutional investors, their flows were kind of normalized. And what we really think, at least as of last night, was that it was some of these high-tech hedge funds, algorithmic, very aggressive selling algorithms that are out there. And the one thing that I would say to the viewers is, we have to, on one hand, acknowledge that they're there, but we can't beat these people at their own game. They have computing power and connectivity that we're never going to have. So we need to think about the market in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm. Now, what does that mean then going into 2019? Because it went a little bit askew from what we expected in 2018.
Yeah.
How does that set us up for the next year?
Well, the three key risks still remain. So that's the trade tariff, trade war. Coming out of the G20 summit, it looks like that's been somewhat addressed, but we have to wait and see what happens. And it's ironic, coming out of the summit, everyone was exuberant. Stock market opened up 450 points. The next day, everyone's like, well, wait a second, we're not hearing the same kind of exuberance from the Chinese side, so maybe there's nothing there. If we have some agreement, and I truthfully believe there's interest on both sides to do something, that will be very, very bullish, and that risk will calm down and potentially go away. The Fed interest rate hike path, I think that's been addressed by Powell a couple weeks ago. I think the market seems to feel comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. The other key risk is this yield curve inversion, and that will be something to watch, not just 2-year versus 10-year, but very short-term money like 3 months versus 10. And if that goes negative, that usually is a signal for a recession, but that signal is usually about 18 to 24 months ahead of when it happens. Mm-hmm. But what I would expect is if that does happen, there will be a lot of repositioning away from your typical growth stocks and into stocks that are more recession-proof.
Brings me to what I was going to ask our viewers might be interested in, what they maybe need to do, or should they really not try to look at the blips and things that are ups and downs every day? What do they need to do to be safe and stable?
I think there's 3 things that I think they need to think about. First is to be very patient in the market. These algorithms can whip the market around, and really what you need to do is have a much longer view. These algorithms have views that are, basically 30 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. The rest of us need to be looking at investing over longer periods of time. So we need to be patient. We need to be very disciplined in how we invest. And then the third thing would be, just to be very sensible about how we're investing and why we're doing it. The stock market return, the reason why we invest in the stock market is because we expect to get a return of 7 to 10%. That's greater than inflation. And, that's why we do it. So we want to be patient in how we're investing.
It typically is, it's good investment if you are in it for more the long term. Doesn't it usually end up prevailing that you've made some money on it?
Yes, that's absolutely right. The one thing that I've always said is that the long-term return in stocks is about, call it 7 to 10%. And if you want to have that long-term return, the only way that you're going to achieve it is to be invested over the long term. So getting in and out is not really a successful strategy.
The area's only 30 minutes or less ER service pledge means you'll find less waiting for the care you need. And because we're full-service hospitals, a lot more care if you need it. Less waiting, faster care. Only at Physicians Regional Healthcare System.
Hiring the right moving company is important. Best Moving and Storage is a family-owned and operated business serving Southwest Florida for over 22 years. From our free in-home estimate until the last piece of furniture is in your new place or stored in our climate-controlled warehouse, we treat you like family. Best Moving and Storage is fully licensed and insured, with all of our employees being certified drivers and packers. When it comes to protecting your treasured belongings, choose a company that's experienced and trustworthy. Call Best Moving and Storage today at 239-592-6565.
My name is Steve Unser, and cabinetry is my specialty. I have been creating custom-designed cabinetry for 20 years in Southwest Florida, and now I am celebrating the grand opening of our new Naples showroom. Steve Unser Cabinetry will help you design your kitchen, bath, or home office with stunning results, offering the best quality of cabinets with a wide variety of design options and pricing to fit any budget. If your kitchen isn't becoming to you, you should be coming to us. Now, 2 locations to serve you.
A trend in medicine toward precision treatments and procedures is making a difference in patient experiences. One example is a targeted approach to prostate biopsies. Here's the latest in this week's Positively Healthy. Modern imaging techniques are helping doctors get a read on lesions on the prostate that could be harboring cancer.
We developed a technique where we would take an MRI of the prostate and we can highlight areas where we really think there is cancer. Where I can now go in, take that MRI image, marry it to the ultrasound machine, and in the operating room or even in the office can do a biopsy and just target that area of suspicion.
This procedure is called a fusion biopsy because it fuses the MRI scan with a live image of an ultrasound. Board-certified urologist Barclay Story believes it's a game changer for some patients.
It's very, very good in patients who have traditionally had PSAs done in the past. Their PSA continues to rise, and we are sort of caught between a rock and the hard place. We suspect there's cancer there, but we can't find it. This actually gives us an opportunity to try to go look for it.
Standard prostate biopsies are blind, which can make looking for cancer similar to searching for a needle in a haystack.
The way we would do biopsies was just a grid pattern, more or less. It was just sort of stabbing in the dark.
Whereas the fusion biopsy pinpoints an area of suspicion, offering doctors the opportunity to guide a needle directly into the lesion.
You're still getting a prostate biopsy, but what you're getting is one that's targeted to specific areas where we really think we're going to get the best information.
Better information may lead to finding cancer earlier or ruling it out altogether, making the fusion biopsy a smart option.
It gives both the patient and myself a little more reassurance.
Finally today, if you want to be ahead of the curve, here's a few pop culture things we think you'll be talking about in 2019. First up on our trend watch, the big ride is still big, and Jeep is bigger than ever. Playing off the mega popular Jeep Wrangler, the company unveiled a look-alike pickup called the Gladiator. Looks kind of like the Wrangler with a tail. And then a new twist on a classic Disney film. The Lion King goes live action, sort of, in 2019. The movie, which debuts in July, is being called live action, but the lifelike animals are actually computer generated, or CGI creations. They're photorealistic, but not real, so it's not a cartoon, but it's still animation and beautiful. Last up, the Whole Foods 2019 food trends. A collection of buyers believe will be digging into Pacific Rim flavors, including dragon fruit and dried shrimp. Keto diets and probiotics will be big. And save this one for last. Did you hear about the hummus as a frozen dessert? It's a new thing in milkshakes. It's supposed to be really good and vegan to boot. And now you know. That's a wrap for this year. You can always catch up on past editions by logging on to NaplesNews.com. On the homepage, scroll down to Quick Links and select Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. See you back here in 2019.